Hello, APN students. Today we're going to be talking about multimedia social media and how that affects our food choices. So let's get into a little bit about what multimedia is and differentiate that between social media, although they are interrelated. So multimedia is a form of communication. We use multimedia through text, through video, through images, audio, and different types of animation. It's a mode of expression, so we use this during educational purpose like webinars and PowerPoint presentations or instructional videos and many more. TV, form of advertising, marketing to us, and anything that's being broadcasted, say, for example, NPR or BBC. And we use our computers on a daily basis, and this is another form that we can be marketed items to using multimedia sources, different types of applications, and that includes our smartphones as well. And now we're getting into simulators, virtual reality, and that's another form of multimedia. Printed is probably the most known source of multimedia, different texts. We see this in magazines and newspapers and anything that's been written down, and this has been going on for many, many years. So how do we differentiate this between social media? Well, the idea is multimedia is more of a passive form of advertising or interaction between different sources, whereas social media is more of an active form of communicating between people. So think of it as you're on Facebook, you're talking to your friends, maybe you're actually promoting a product because you're getting paid for it, and so you're sharing this content between different people actively. And so you're collecting different types of communication, distributing them. This actually provides more form of creativity to allow you to express yourself, and it's fostering network at the same time. And again, content sharing is probably one of the biggest factors of social media because you can really share anything you want. So social media and multimedia, and how does this relate to nutrition? Well, there are many different forms. If we look here on the left-hand side, more of a government-based track, Super Tracker and Blast Off. So these are a couple of applications that you can access for free. Super Tracker, many of you probably know that you can actually track your food intake, analyze the data in real time, and have a whole chart, and you can take this information and act upon it. Blast Off is mostly for kids. It's a program that engages kids in nutritional activities. Now we get into more of the phone applications or online multimedia sources, such as recipe websites, allrecipes.com. And when we start looking at different talk show hosts, this is more of a public forum. Dr. Oz and Oprah, they oftentimes will promote nutritional ideas and different types of food products, and this can be controversial at times. ConAgra Foods is an example of a corporation that promotes webinars and health products, and they also sell food to they distribute food to other companies. And finally, we have Marion Nestle, who's actually a scientist, Dr. Marion Nestle, and a food blogger. You can go to her website and check out everything that she's been talking about. She talks a lot about lobbying and different food laws. She's a very interesting person, and I highly recommend that you look a little bit more into her. And we actually will be looking at some of her literature. So is the media reporting accurately? Take a look at these websites that I've posted here. I've given you the links. Now, who is Food Babe? Who is Dr. Oz? Most of you probably know who Dr. Oz, but maybe not as many of you know who Food Babe is. So check out these websites. I want you to see, are they reliable interpreters of science? This is going to be the underlining tone of this class of looking at the science and looking at the people who are reporting upon the science. Are they reliable? Are they using the sources accurately? Do they make any false nutrition claims? So, how does social media affect our food choices? Social media can affect us in many different aspects, such as the local food movement. Organic foods. This one actually is a link to a food truck that tweets out their location every time they're around the city. I have an article, The Influence on Food and Adolescence Using Electronic Devices. Digital junk. The scientists look at the marketing of advertisements in Facebook, some eating concerns in social media. We have a link for that. And labeling informed consumers is a article that talks about how adolescents were exposed to uh, sugar sweetened beverages with nutrition labels, and some that were not focused on nutrition labels, and to see the results for that, what their choices were. And finally, I have a little link for Tweeting Your Diet. Talks more about the environment and the healthy choices that you may or may not be making. So I just want to give some statistics. This is from Statista. It's a very large database that collects information and puts it to a graph. Most of the time you have to pay for this information, so if you go to this website, you might find that some are free, some are not. This one was free, and you can probably find this one again. So anyways, this talks about to what extent do you trust the following forms of advertising and maybe your recommendations. And you can see that the majority of people get their recommendations from people that they know. So where does all that information come from? Who knows, really? It could come from their neighbor. It could come from anywhere on the internet. Is it actually from a scientific source? That's up to question. And now you can actually read through all these different statistics. The blue is 2011, the dark navy blue is 2013, or that might be black, and the gray is 2015. You can see how that changes throughout the years. Now I decided to throw something in for beverage advertisement in the US. And we have a bunch of different beverage companies: Coke, Pepsi, Gatorade, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, etc. And you can see which company has been spending the most in millions of dollars. And this is just in 2015. So add that up through all the years and up into 2017. It's a lot of money. It's a big business too. And then finally, billions of dollars spent globally on advertising. So this again is from Statista. And you can see that in 2017, I believe this was more of a projection that they'll be spending about $591 billion total in the world, and more of a projection going into 2018. And finally, 2020, almost $725 billion are spent on enticing your taste buds on delicious foods and beverage products. So media and nutrition, how is science being interpreted? So if you're reading an electronic article, any sort of literature, you want to make sure it's a reliable source. And how do you figure out if it's a reliable source? Well, there are multiple different ways. You can look at first the journal name. Is it a reputable journal, such as the American Heart Association or PLOS journals? These are ones that are usually peer-reviewed, and they have been known to produce good articles or track those that don't support enough information. If you're looking at articles that are produced by public media, then you want to make sure that the journal's actually listed in there. So if you have a journalist who's reporting on antioxidants and what this article found, make sure the article's there. And I actually recommend to go back into that article and read it to make sure they are interpreting the information correctly. Now, the next one's a given: title and abstract. Do those actually represent what you were trying to look for? Usually when I look for an article, I read through the abstract. If the information there makes sense to what I'm looking for, I'll read the rest of the article. If it doesn't, then I'm not going to waste my time. I know your time's very limited, so it's just another way of being efficient. So after you start reading the abstract, you get into the background information, and usually at the end of the background information, the authors will state their hypothesis, and this is going to be a clear and concise message of what they're trying to find and what they're trying to prove. After that, we get into materials and methods. This is a very important section. This should be clear to you when you're reading it. Now, they're going to be talking about the sample size. Is it a very small sample size, a medium, or maybe a very large sample size? Are they using cells? Are they using human subjects? Or are they using the intermediate animal subjects? Animals. And what variables are they using to test? And also, are they using a randomized controlled trial, the golden standard? Are they using some sort of clinical trial? Or are they using a very basic more of a preliminary study that's trying to first figure out if it's going to work before they go large scale. When they get into results, make sure they're presenting those results with, being very clear, being upfront about what they found. And finally, when you get into the conclusion, you want to make sure that they're interpreting these results correctly. Are you finding something that's a little bit different? That's okay. Maybe you find something that they didn't present in the article, and that's fine. And finally, referencing. Most literature articles are going to reference everything that they use. Now, if you go into public media, sometimes they don't actually include those articles. Or if you even go into a blog space, nutrition experts will start reporting on a certain diet, maybe celiac disease, for example, and maybe they'll be putting the latest recommendations for celiac disease, but not actually including their articles. In that case, you can probably contact the author and see where they got that information from. Oh, and how reliable are the sources? Are they the nutrition expert, or are they actually a nutrition expert who is practicing in the field currently? And when we get into the principles of social media and reporting accurate information, we want to communicate this information effectively because, in essence, we want to improve the lives of others through the information that we find. So, who is your audience? What are their needs? What are their demographics? Any cultural backgrounds or habits that we should be aware of when we're presenting our information? Are they academics? Are they other professionals that just don't have a background in nutrition? Or are they people who haven't gone to university or are have different stages of educational or learning background? What is a nutritional message? What are you trying to communicate to them? Is this something that's actually going to help them improve their lives? Is it something for diabetes that's going to directly impact them? Or is it some abstract idea about maybe antioxidants or some protein in the brain that maybe we can find in food that'll help us live longer? Ethics and etiquette. You want to make sure that you're presenting with truthfulness. This is very important. Presenting information that's very reliable and repeatable or has been repeated in the past. Usually when information is going to be recommended, it's been repeated quite a few times, and so people are more likely to be using that. Personal, when you're actually reporting these ideas, you want to make sure that you're using your own voice. People can see through the cracks. People can see if you're not, if you're not reporting truthfully, and you want to be professional about it too. You want to report ideas that are well known, and they can be documented very well. And in the end, we're trying to empower people. We're trying to provide them with the tools so that they can make change in their own life. They can use that information to improve their own disease state or to prevent any diseases from happening. So this gets into positive impacts of social media and nutrition. We've talked a lot about some of the negative impacts about people not reporting accurate information. That potential is always there, but there's also very supportive ideas using support groups through social media like Facebook and such as weight loss groups. People create their own support groups that they can talk with each other to make sure that they're following their diets and that they have the support they need to continue with that and lose weight. Among many other different types of support groups, alcohol anonymous support groups as well. Organized activity groups. This can be organized on social media, such as exercise groups. Nutrition classes can be broadcasted through webinars, through live webinars, through Skype even, or programs or applications like Meetup, where you create an event and people can join you and go hiking or do nutrition class, learn fermentation. There's all sorts of things you can do with different social media applications. Intellectual podcasts. Dietitians and different scientists are using podcasts for more of an audio, social media, multimedia form. And some of these are live, some of these are pre-recorded. And so they're reporting upon nutrition ideas that might be beneficial to the mass. Healthy recipes, all recipes, MyFitnessPal, Food and Nutrition Magazine, these are all different forms of multimedia that we can share ideas and healthy or maybe not healthy recipes through all recipes. And MyFitnessPal, you can track your nutrition information. Also, you can track your physical activity. And Food Nutrition Magazine, it's just one of many food magazines that's promoting healthy recipes, promoting healthy food applications, and the latest articles in the scientific world. Health advocates. You can be a nutrition advocate. You can be a health advocate. Getting into food policy, getting into nutrition-related bills. This is incredibly important. I can't stress this. I always took this for granted going through school. Policy affects everything we really do. It affects the ability for us to receive healthcare and provide it. So, for example, under Medicare, you can't actually give um, insurance will not cover education for prediabetes. It'll only cover education for full-fledged diabetes. So if we actually want to get into the preventative side of nutrition, we need to pass policy and different bills that are going to allow us to do that. And finally, your close friends are going to be quite influential in your own lives. Just make sure when you're posting something, it's going to be helpful content and it's not going to be misleading. And same with them. Give them a reminder. So that sums it up for this social media nutrition, and stay tuned for the next videos.